episode of the Fake Football Analysts. I've been doing it for almost a year now, one football season. Sometimes I want to say that's my sports. That's what I used to be. But get caught up in it. I got not Hollywood Ray. He's not here today. He's being Hollywood doing his thing. But I do have Christian from the Giant Topic. And he's on. You can follow that on all social media platforms. Really good stuff. There's a lot of Giant stuff. So anyone who watches or wants to find new Giants content, this is a good guy right here. Trust. I've been on his pod, and he's first time on mine. So we'll see how it is. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us, Fake Football Analysts, on YouTube and all other social media platforms. Christian, how are you doing, my man?
Man, I am doing great. I mean, we've seen some really good football the past 2 days. It's still going right now as we speak. But I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on the channel. It feels good to be on the podcast. Ready to talk some playoff football.
All right, cool. So before we get into today's, we have like 3 games today because the NFL likes to be greedy and not do 3 and 3. So we'll just do real quick from yesterday's games. So obviously Rams-Panthers. The Panthers almost won that, and they were making a lot of mistakes. But the Rams won 34-31, and then the Bears. Man, I thought the Bears were going to lose it because Caleb Williams as a USC quarterback is not it in the pros. They ended up winning 31-27. So from either game, everyone you want to dissect, what were your thoughts so far on the Saturday games?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the perfect game to start with is definitely the Rams and Panthers game. Going into that game, Aaron, I was very curious to see how were the Rams going to respond after the first time they played the Carolina Panthers. This Rams team fell on its face, right? That was a game that they should have won, and ultimately, that was a game when I remember watching that game, leaving that game, saying to myself, I'm still not entirely sold on Bryce Young as a quarterback, but with what David Canales is having him do in that offense, how that team believes in Canales and gets behind Bryce Young, they could be a team that could contend in the playoffs. I'm not saying they would go far, but I do think that they would play competitive to a lot of teams that are in the playoffs, considering that the Rams are considered one of the best teams in the NFL, and they had no issues with them in that game. This game, I initially thought, hey, this is probably going to be a blowout. I mean, you're up 14-0, Aaron, and the Panthers just find ways to keep themselves in the game. They come back, and like you said, a game that the Panthers almost won. You could argue, Aaron, they should have won. They should have won. Ultimately, though, I think that, the Rams are the better team. They should have won that game, but you got to give a lot of credit to the Panthers because, that division, it's not the greatest division in the NFC, but they do have teams in that division that play competitive, they play tough, they play hard. The Panthers are one of those teams. I am interested to see what is going to happen with Bryce Young, but I think that's a good game to start. What were some of your thoughts on that game?
My thoughts were that we said it last week on the Fake Football Analyst, but Dave Canales watches Fake Football Analyst because we called them out on Clean Your Desk segment in like the beginning of the season when they were I think they only had like 3 wins and just wasn't looking good. And all of a sudden they turned it around, won the division. And I was like, oof, I might have to pick the Panthers to overcome the Rams just because of a few weeks ago when they picked off Stafford 3 times. And that wasn't the case last night. Last night. I did like Jalen Coker in this game. I didn't realize he was that much of an X factor for the Panthers. I thought it was just going to be the Tedera McMillan show and possibly Tommy Tremble, just because it just seemed like Bryce Young was looking for his tight ends more like near the end of the season. Yeah. But Jalen Coker, I think, is that definite it guy for the number two spot for receivers. And I kind of wanted more Rico Dowdle in this game, but I understood why they put in Chuba, just like a bigger running back. It just seemed like the Rams linebackers were attacking the run game immensely. So I understood why I went to Chuba, but Trevor Etienne should not be fielding punts. He's trying to field it with his face and not with his hands. So that was a little iffy that they kept him out there. But all in all, I mean, the Rams were, I want to say, a C game they played their C game and just barely beat Carolina. So going to the next round, they need to clean up their mistakes because I think the NFC's already set. Just gonna look real here.
It is, yeah. You have the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks, and now the Bears. And I think both of those games, Aaron, could be electric.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
and there goes my dog Kobe in the background. Um, you know, Aaron, I think you make a great point when discussing that wide receiver room. Jalen Coker, he's dealt with some injuries, but he's shown that when he is healthy, he's consistent. He's a reliable target. He can get it done in the short and intermediate portions of the fields. And you also look at McMillan, Tedera McMillan, who I believe is still leading the race for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, in his first playoff game, he had himself quite the game, But I'd love to get your opinion on this because I've received some pushback with some of the people I talk football with. I think personally that this game really highlighted just how ineffective guys like Xavier Legette has been for the Carolina Panthers. How I'm seeing Tedera McMillan playing, how I'm seeing Jalen Coker playing. For me, I'm watching and I'm saying, why can't we get the same production from Xavier Legette? Who, don't get me wrong, he's not a terrible wide receiver. I don't even think he's a bad wide receiver, but I do think that the expectations that have been placed on him, he hasn't lived up to those expectations. And I'm very interested to see what they do this offseason. Do they address the wide receiver room again? Do they move on from Legette to a team that could say to themselves, "Hey, we could do something with him over here. We'll give you a third round, maybe a fourth round pick for him," and they move off of him and they build off of Coker and Tedera McMillan. It's a question they have to ask because he was really inefficient for them all season, and then it really showed in this game.
Yeah, he definitely dipped from last year, and I mean, the guy can cook raccoon meat. He just can't cook on the field. It is what it is. I think there's I think they're still going to keep him just because he was a first round pick and they traded up from the second round into the first to get him last year. So I think they're going to give him another shot because if you think about it, yeah, you have Coker, McMillan. Who else do you have in that wide receiver room?
It's not a lot of talent, but and outside, and you added Jimmy Horn from Colorado. I think it was I think he was an undrafted rookie, or they might have drafted him in the 7th round. He wasn't. I think he was an undrafted rookie, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah,
but you're right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, outside of those two, there really is no depth. But I do think that this is a pretty good wide receiver room overall. And yeah, obviously keeping Legette does make sense, but just off of this season alone, I think it does raise the question of, is this a guy that we want in the building going forward? And I think that's something that they have to ask themselves. You had asked me my thoughts on the Chicago Bears and Green Bay game.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta be honest with you, Aaron. I think that was up there for game of the year. Personally, I mean, I might be a little, might be a little crazy saying that, but I mean, Caleb Williams. I mean, like you said, with him being a USC quarterback, not a lot of them get a ton of success, if you will, or excuse me, have a ton of success. But Caleb Williams, I think, is changing the Chicago Bears' franchise around. I think him and Ben Johnson are what the Chicago Bears have been needing since. I don't want to sound a little dramatic. You can tell me if I'm being dramatic, but I think they are what they've been needing since the Bears' inception. If I'm a Chicago Bears fan, I'm saying to myself, I have not felt this confident in this team probably in my entire life as I am right now. We have the quarterback. We have, some would consider, a top 5, maybe a top 6 to 7 coach in the NFL in Ben Johnson, who, I mean, my goodness. I mean, for someone who, a lot of people thought, well, how are they going to look? This is the Chicago Bears. They don't have a lot of talent offensively. Defensively, they're not that great. I mean, they went and beat a division rival who owns them, let's be honest here, who should have beaten the Chicago Bears, and they got it done. I think they're a scary team to watch going forward, whether they make it far in this postseason or not. I think as long as Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are together in Chicago, they are going to be a contender year in and year out if they continue treading in the direction that they're treading right now.
Yeah, I had my thoughts about Caleb Williams last night when I was watching because he would throw like overhead to like Luther Burden a few times, and he's like yelling at Luther Burden. I'm like, bro, nobody could have caught those balls that you were throwing. So I don't know why you were coming at Luther Burden. Like you could see on the sidelines, like he was getting frustrated, like at his receivers instead of like himself. So I was like, oh yeah, the Packers got him. It's over. And then when they I believe who scored that touchdown? I think it was the Romeo Dobbs touchdown. I was like, oh yeah, they're cooked. And the fact that like Colston Loveland had a game, and I was talking to myself, I was like, man, they should have drafted Tyler Warren. Why would they go after Colston Loveland in the first round over Tyler Warren? And I was like, oh, maybe that's why. Getting 134 yards received, or those are 37. I'm sorry, receiving yards. But no, I feel you on that with the Bears. Like Caleb Williams is the closest to getting 4,000 yards, I think, since like the 50s. From the Bears. Like not even Jay Cutler could do it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's only just because it is Ben Johnson, and we saw it too with Detroit. Detroit was the I think they were the number 1 or number 2 seed last year, lost in the divisional round in the playoffs, and then Ben Johnson goes to Chicago, and what happened to Detroit? They didn't make the playoffs. They went 9-8, but they were just very spotty on offense. Like Ben Johnson was the key to that franchise, and now that he's here, he got Rome Odunze, who he had a clutch 4th down play, but you didn't see him in this game where you saw him in the beginning of the season and even in the middle of the season. Like DJ Moore had an impressive touchdown. He was wide open, but even him, like he could have a good game and then he could have a bad game. So it's just like this offense is crazy, but that Bears defense kept it together. I think there might be a clean your desk segment because Matt LaFleur, I don't know, man.
Ooh, it's definitely worth questioning because I remember tweeting yesterday on my Twitter account saying that, because I was listing the teams that I thought were the most desirable locations for John Harbaugh. And in the 4th selection, I put Philly / Buffalo / Green Bay. And I received some pushback about Green Bay, I guess, because Ian Rappaport had reported, or Adam Schefter, one of those two, they had reported that Mike LaFleur was going to be safe. There's, even if they lost, he's still going to be safe. And that still might be true. But in my mind, I thought to myself, there are going to be organizations that have had certain head coaches there for a couple years. They haven't been able to go over that hump. And they're saying to themselves, if we bring in John Harbaugh, we could possibly get over that hump and get to where they need to be. One of those teams being the Packers. Listen, LaFleur is a phenomenal coach. If he were to get fired, me personally, he jumps to my number 1 for the Giants in terms of head coaching desires. But if you're Green Bay, do you say to yourself, if we bring in John Harbaugh, and we could build around this solid defense that we have. We could build around the wide receivers and Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs. They could tell themselves, we could get over the hump that we've been trying to get over since the Aaron Rodgers days. It's worth questioning. I agree with a lot of the statements that you made, Aaron. And I gotta wonder. I really, really have to wonder. Do the Packers and do the front office say to themselves, look, LaFleur, he's been getting it done. He's our guy. We're going to hitch our wagon on LaFleur, and we're going to pass up potentially either getting a Stefanski or a Harbaugh in our room and helping us get over that hump. I'm not sure. I mean, I personally, I'm good with them, keeping LaFleur. One less destination open, but we'll see.
Yeah, and to close it off in the Packers Bears, Brian Burns should have been over Michael Parsons on All Pro. I'm just going to put that out there.
Absolutely, so. I agree. Absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, no. Other than that, though, I think the Packers are going to keep who they have. Like I know the defensive coordinator, Falfy. however you say it. I know he's been looking for some jobs for like head coach. I don't think he's like a number one on the list. Cliff Kingsbury is out there on offense if you kind of want to switch it up just a little bit. If you think that's not working out with Matt LaFleur, if you just want him to be just a strictly head coach instead of offensive coordinator. Because like Jordan Love had a good game until like that final drive. He looked like Dak Prescott a few years ago when he ran the ball instead of throwing it with like 10 seconds left. So that's the only thing I was concerned with Jordan Love. Other than that, he didn't have a bad game, but it looked like when he gets out of the pocket, he's like not a mediocre quarterback, but he's not as effective as if he's in the pocket, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, it is. I've seen a lot of people on Packers Twitter, entertain the idea of moving off of Jordan Love and just riding the wagon with Malik Willis.
Wow, that's a spicy take. Jeez.
That is, and don't get me wrong, when Malik Willis has entered the lineup, he's looked good. But me personally, I think they'd win a lot more with Jordan Love. He's still young. I understand that he got that contract extension after not playing a lot of football, but I think they'll get healthy. I do still think they need a dominant wide receiver one. I know that they got Matthew Golden, they got Dontavian Wicks, they got Christian Watson, they got all of these different wide receiver twos that, they're good. They're some of the league's best wide receiver twos, but they don't have that number one guy. I mean, and I guess you could say it's Tucker Kraft, but I've always been kind of iffy on my number one target on my offense being my tight ends. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of that. But I still think they're a good team. They are a team worth respecting. They did go into this game injured, but I think a lot of people are going to really ride that injury train as to why they lost. They were going to enter this year without Micah Parsons. Like they had a good defense before Micah Parsons. They had a pretty good defense after Micah Parsons. I think they're regretting that Trayvon Diggs acquisition because he looked god awful in this green.
He looked like Trayvon Diggs. That's what he is.
Exactly. So, I mean, they have a lot of questions that they're going to have to answer this offseason for sure.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of injuries, I'm glad that you brought that up because we can get into today's matchup. Oh. And we got Buffalo, Jacksonville. So injuries, Josh Allen is the guy. They really don't have a number one receiver, which we just talked about with the Packers. Some key players were hurt that have been hurt for a little bit or even just before the game started. So Buffalo came in. They would have lost today because Jacksonville was up 24-20 on them. Then, of course, Khalil Shakir, who I've been saying is not number one receiver, looked like a number one. Josh Allen just threw a dart to him to get, like a 35-yard catch. And then, of course, Josh Allen is Josh Allen and is their main rusher of the game. I thought it was going to be James Cook, but Josh Allen's like, nah, hold my beer. And he rushed in for 2 touchdowns. So I thought overall, though, like Jacksonville looked good. It's just you could tell with Liam Cohen that, he's a first-year head coach. And Trevor Lawrence made rookie mistakes, even though he's not a rookie, if that makes sense. But what were your thoughts on that game?
Well, where do we start? Do we start with the Bills? Do we start with the Jags? Let's start with the Jags, right? I think that overall, Jacksonville has a very bright future with Liam Cohen and that front office. I think that they're a team, as well as a team like the Chicago Bears, a team like we're seeing tonight play the New England Patriots. There are teams that were at the bottom of the league last year. We knew they had talent, but we knew, hey, the guys that they have at head coach are not the guys that are going to be with them going forward, and they need to take these take these respected franchises to the next level. What did those teams do? They fired their head coaches. They casted a wide net. They hit on their head coaching hires, and it's really shown this season and in the postseason as well. You highlighted that Liam Cohen did coach this game like a first-time, rookie head coach. I think overall, Aaron, I don't think this was the day for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, Offensively, they played undisciplined. You saw guys, missing assignments. You saw, just plays that you're saying to yourself, this is not the same team that went on that run towards the second half of the season. I think they won like 8 or 9 games in a row, both on the road and at home. I thought Trevor Lawrence's 2 turnovers were extremely costly. The first one I'm gonna definitely put on Trevor Lawrence. It seemed like there was a little bit of miscommunication, but the second one, which was ultimately the game sealing interception, I'm not going to entirely put that on him. I want to see it from a different angle, but tipped balls can go any way in every single game, regardless of the quarterback. So I'm not going to put that entirely on him. But I do think, just again, this wasn't their day. Cam Little usually makes those field goals. He missed one today just by a couple inches.
I was stunned.
I was stunned too. I'm not even gonna lie. You leave Brandon Cooks of all people, wide open on a busted coverage, which ultimately that was the drive that led the Buffalo Bills to score their game-winning touchdown. This just wasn't their day for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I do think that they are headed in the right direction. They have the right pieces, and they have pieces to build off of. And I think that at least in their division, I mean, I'm not entirely sold on the Colts. I'm not entirely sold on the Texans just yet. I think they need a couple more pieces to get to where they need to be. But I think Jacksonville is a serious threat for that division and that conference.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we saw what Liam Cohen did with Baker Mayfield and the defense that they had there, even the offense that they had there, and went to the playoffs last year for the Buccaneers. So I don't have doubts with Liam Cohen. With the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's just Trevor Lawrence. Like that, I don't have that confidence in him. Like they paid him I think it was last year. They gave him the bag to be the Jacksonville savior for years to come, and it's just like I feel like in big games he just crumbles so much. I don't understand. As a number one pick, you play that Clemson, you beat Alabama in the national championship. It's just why in the NFL you have some of these really good games, and then you just got these games where it's just head scratching. I don't know.
And I get that. No, I get that. I mean, I think that he's had a really good season. I'm not going to say obviously MVP caliber season, but I do think that compared to the coaching that he's had since he's entered the league, I think this is the best coaching that he's had. I think I'm going to be honest with you, Aaron. I think this is, at least offensively, the best roster that he's had since entering the NFL. I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars have one of the most underrated wide receiver rooms in the NFL, kind of similar to Green Bay. You do have Brian Thomas Jr., who didn't have his best season, but, down the stretch, especially in this game, he was effective. He wasn't the Brian Thomas Jr. that we saw in his rookie season, but he was somewhat effective down the stretch. Then you also have Parker Washington, who he's having his best game of the season. But, throughout this season, he was consistent. He was reliable for that offense. They traded for Jacoby Myers, who they then extended. He had an okay game today, but throughout, his tenure with the Jacksonville Jaguars, again, consistent, reliable, worth the extension and the trade. And then you have Travis Hunter, who he's on IR right now, but when he comes back, well, actually, before we get to when he comes back, prior to him going on IR, he looked fairly solid. I thought he looked pretty good, considering that there were a lot of question marks.
He was a better receiver than cornerback. And I think
I agree.
This offseason, they need to figure out, what are you? Are you going to be the number 2 for Brian Thomas? Maybe that's what Brian Thomas needs. Because I was going to say Parker Washington, who? The guy's been in the league for 3 years with Jacksonville, knew nothing about him, and he had the game of his life. I mean, hats off to him. But, I think if Travis Hunter's that number 2 and Brian Thomas would have a lot more open looks, I actually think Jacksonville would have won this game. But, I mean, hypotheticals are hypotheticals. But, I definitely agree with Jacksonville.
Look, I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying. I still would like to see, him on both sides of the ball. I think that he played pretty good at corner too. There were some games where he showed flashes of, hey, I could be a very good corner in this league. But I kind of lean towards what you're saying too. I would like to see Travis Hunter pick a side and pick a position. Just to avoid injuries, just to lessen the wear and tear on the tires, for him as a football player in and of itself. But going back to what I was saying, I think they have an underrated wide receiver room. You were talking about Travis Etienne earlier. He's looked like he's turned his career around with Liam Cohen. I think for me
Absolutely.
personally, going into this year, I wasn't entirely sold on Travis Etienne compared to when he played at Clemson, but he showed this year, hey, I'm still that guy from Clemson. I could get it done on the ground. I could get it done through the air. It doesn't matter. And I could block decently, So I'm very excited to see him going forward. They picked up his 5th-year extension, so I'm excited to see him going forward. I think this wasn't a good game by Jacksonville. You're right. This wasn't a good game by Trevor Lawrence. He's had a good year, but this wasn't a good game by him. But overall, like I said, this wasn't their day. But they have a bright future ahead. I think they can leave this game frustrated, but still somewhat keeping their head up, saying to themselves, we have something brewing down there in Duval.
Yeah, exactly. And you didn't say it right. It's Duval.
Duval.
Before we go to the next game, I just want to ask real quick, doesn't have to be that long. So, no Kansas City Chiefs, no Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs. Is this finally the year for Buffalo to make it?
If not now, when?
Exactly.
It's for me. I mean, what, maybe next year, because I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to play it down next year, considering how late in the season this year he tore his ACL, and just looking at it from a rehabilitation standpoint. But if not this year, when are you going to? And I don't agree with the narrative that Josh Allen doesn't have any help offensively. I get it. He doesn't have the guy that they traded out of Buffalo. Not traded out. Didn't extend in Buffalo in Diggs, right? Stephon Diggs. He's now with the New England Patriots. I understand. They traded him out. Okay,
yeah,
I'm not tripping. Then I'm not tripping. Then on top of that, you have guys like Keon Coleman, who I'm not going to label him a bust, but I am going to label him a very underwhelming player that they've drafted. And like you said, with Khalil Shakir, I mean, he's been reliable for them. I think he's one of the better slot receivers in the NFL, but this is their opportunity. This is their opportunity to at least make a deep run in the playoffs. I don't like their chances. I don't think that they're going to go to the Super Bowl personally. The team that I thought would go to the Super Bowl just got eliminated today. So, that says a lot. I thought it was going to be Jacksonville, if I'm being honest with you. I did. I thought they were one of the more complete teams for the AFC, because I have a lot of questions on the Chargers. I have a lot of questions on New England. I have a lot of questions on the Texans and the Steelers. So I thought Jacksonville, as well as Buffalo, I just felt that Jacksonville was the more complete team, going into this playoff season, but showed that it really didn't matter. So it has to be this year. It has to be. But Aaron, you and I know this. If he doesn't make it deep into the playoffs, the excuses are going to be there. Despite him having the leading rusher in the NFL, despite him having a top 10 tight end in Dalton Kincaid, listen, they're not an elite defense, but they're not a bad defense either in the Buffalo Bills. I mean, let's not act like he's carrying a bottom of the league roster. I'm not saying that they're a top of the league roster, but I would say a middle of the pack. I think that's fair. I think a middle of the pack roster is fair. But if you're that guy, I'm not going to make this a Giants podcast, but if you're that guy, if you're who the league and the world has told you to be, you should be able to carry that roster to the Super Bowl. Because what did we see both in 2007 and 2011? A quarterback that not many people considered a high-end quarterback in the NFL take an above average, if not average team to the Super Bowl twice and win the Super Bowl. So my point being is, if you are that guy, if you have the pathway to do so, you should be able to take your team to the Super Bowl, if not at least to the conference championship, in my opinion. But I digress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was actually going to say I kind of wanted Jacksonville to win because Clean Your Desk segment could have came out, and I would have been like, Sean McDermott, you want to come down to Jersey? and he's
Hell no, Aaron, no, please, no,
let's
no, no,
let's not say things we don't mean. I'm bringing that back. But
please.
I'm glad you were talking about that with the digressive teams, because the next matchup, which was Eagles versus Niners,
Yep.
digress. Super Bowl champs get dethroned instantly. AJ Brown might not even be on the team next year from what happened in the scuffle, and even just the entire season in general.
Right.
Brock Purdy was looking solid until I want to say like the end of the third, into the fourth. Like, obviously those two picks didn't really matter, but just like Robert Saleh, I've said it to you. I've said it to many people. I would love him back in New York, but only with Mike McDaniel as offensive coordinator. I'll say my piece with that one. But what were your thoughts on this game? Because
yeah, no. That's exactly the way that I felt, right, leaving this game. If I'm being honest with you, should we start with the bad? Should we start with the good? I'll start with the 49ers and work my way to the Eagles a little
yeah,
bit.
let's do that. Let's do that.
So the 49ers, right? I think off the bat, I don't think he's going to get the award, but I do think that Kyle Shanahan should get strong consideration for Coach of the Year. To take the severely injured roster and take them to the postseason with the 12-4 record, with no Bosa, no Fred Warner. They've lost a ton of linebackers outside of Fred Warner. Then you lose George Kittle to an Achilles in the first half. I mean, and you win a playoff game against the defending Super Bowl champions in their house. I mean, you should absolutely get strong consideration for Coach of the Year. Every week, this team, week in and week out, shows fight. They show grit, tenacity. They show that they're one of the best teams in the NFL, and that despite how many players that they lose, similar to the Baltimore Ravens, despite how many players they lose, you can never count them out. They're going to be ready regardless of who they call on. It might be ugly, but don't count them out going into that game. I think Christian McCaffrey is the comeback player of the year. I mean, the last two seasons, I would say, and Aaron, you could correct me if you disagree or if you think I'm wrong. The last two seasons, a lot of people questioned whether Christian McCaffrey was going to continue with his NFL career due to injuries. How was his Achilles going to be? Just looking at the injuries that he's dealt with, how is he going to come back? And he hasn't missed a step. He has been the light and the force in that 49ers offense, getting it done through the air, getting it done through the ground, and I don't think he's missed a snap. I don't think he's missed a game being injured this year. If I'm wrong, I mean, chat, tell me, but I don't think that he has.
No.
A lot of people questioned how he would play, and he showed a lot of people, including myself, because I had my questions. I'm still one of the best running backs in the NFL. I'm still one of the best running backs in the last decade to play in the NFL. I mean, that boy is nasty. And Brock Purdy, we can't not talk about Brock Purdy. I'm usually very hard on him, but he was deadly accurate. He's been deadly accurate, for quite a stretch going down into the second half of the season. He's made some big time plays with his arms and with his legs. He's made some big time throws. He's been playing very good football for the 49ers in recent weeks. And if they're going to have any chance of making a deep postseason run, it's going to come down to Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy, in my opinion, at least. I think that they are a serious threat to the rest of the NFC, especially, when we just saw the 49ers, the Los Angeles Rams come out of a freaking bloodfest with the Carolina Panthers. I have to lean towards the 49ers that they are a legitimate threat in the NFC.
Yeah, no, I actually was going to talk about that because I was thinking about it. I was like, all right, well, the Eagles are the defending champs. Like, you have the Bears, who have no idea about playoff experience, then with Ben Johnson. You have the Carolina Panthers, where we just talked about with Canales. He was on clean your desk for a bit until he's won the division, thanks to the Falcons. And then it was like, who else in the NFC has that much playoff experience? And it's these two teams out west in San Francisco and LA. So the fact that the Super Bowl champs went down, and now we can actually see a good matchup between San Francisco and LA when the time comes. Like once one of those teams is out, I have a feeling whoever comes out of that bloodbath matchup, I think is gonna win the NFC. And
I
I know,
agree.
oh, the Seahawks are the number one seed. Okay, Mike McDonald, what playoff experience do you have as head coach? Exactly. He doesn't. Whereas you have Shanahan, McVay, they have the experience in the playoffs, won a Super Bowl. Well, not Shanahan, but he's been in Super Bowls. Whereas McVay's won a Super Bowl and lost in one. So it's like they have all this experience. I think whoever wins in that playoff matchup is going to win the NFC. And with Christian McCaffrey, this is why when people are like, oh, well, Saquon it should get Christian McCaffrey money. No, Christian McCaffrey is a different animal. And thank God to whoever helped him in Germany, because he went to
I
Germany
think
for
it was
half the
Germany.
season
Yeah.
last year, getting his calf muscles and everything like that. They probably bathed in like goat milk or something. It probably worked. But he's been electric this season. I was surprised in general with this game just because of the offensive side of the ball. Because we saw in the beginning of the year, like Mac Jones, he was just that game manager. He got it going. And Brock Purdy came back, and he has moments where he was a little but then he has moments where he was like really elite. And then in this game, you saw him take control when it mattered the most. Like Demarcus Robinson, did anyone think he was going to be the leading receiver with 111 yards for this team? I didn't. I thought it was going to be the CMC show. But yeah, no, the Robert Saleh, the way that he operated with exactly what you were talking about with less linebackers, you had to get rid of pretty much your front three. They're all on different teams now just because you couldn't afford them. The fact that they're still getting pressure on the quarterback, even though they had one sack, and just the way everything's been going well for them. I mean, I was really impressed with how they showed up for Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan, just because we know how Kyle Shanahan is in the playoffs. And now the Eagles, and just because we're Giants fans doesn't mean we can't critique them. I
I agree.
think something needs to shuffle.
Hmm.
Jalen Hurts, I kept hearing that he's like a top 3 quarterback in the league and yada, yada, yada. And he won the Super Bowl and they just threw him in there. I was like, hold up. Let's not say things we don't mean.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's just a big game manager with this offensive coordinator. And we've seen it where he does mostly button hooks, go routes. They go at least 10 yards, like 5-yard slants. Like the fact that you have Devontae Smith, the Slim Reaper, and AJ Brown, like it's like one of the best duos in the league, and you only threw 168 yards. Like it just
Yeah.
baffles me. And like Saquon, we all knew what was going to happen with him. They were using too much last year, and everyone's like, "Yeah, like this guy's back." And then, like he had a good game, but he looked a little off, like the Saquon we knew in New York with the
Hmm.
26 carries. But I mean, I love that the Eagles went down because I didn't want to see them go far in the playoffs. But this team, I really think AJ Brown's going to get traded in the offseason.
Yeah, I
Where
do
I'm not
too.
sure.
I agree with you 1,000%. Aaron, I'll be honest with you. I thought this loss for the Philadelphia Eagles was a summary of the Eagles season, right? Inconsistent play from Jalen Hurts, players dropping balls, players playing frustrated, a la AJ Brown. Um, the offense lacking creativity and is looking predictable, right? I thought the run game was okay today, but it wasn't entirely effective compared to what we saw last season, which I mean, last season was an anomaly. You can't expect your running back to go for 2,000 yards every single year. But just again, just inconsistent QB play, offensive looking lackluster, the defense keeping them in the game. But if they're not playing from a lead, it's very hard for them to really come back, which I think it speaks to the offense. I think it speaks to Jalen Hurts, who, look, I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts fan. Let me put my biases aside from being a Giants fan and let me just critique him from me being a football fan. Look, He's underthrowing his wide receivers. He's not entirely accurate. At least this season, he hasn't been playing entirely accurate. He's not attacking the middle of the field as much as he previously was last year. They're not taking a lot of shots downfield. And then on top of that, like I said, the defense is keeping them in the game. They're causing turnovers. They had, I think it was like 2 or 3 today. I believe it was 2. They're creating pressures. They're getting to the quarterback, but it's not enough. Now, they are going to scapegoat that offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. I think we can both agree he's going to be out of there. But at this point, I mean, do you cut your losses with A.J. Brown? I think you have to. I think that they will absolutely take what they can for him. And Howie Roseman, he is a genius of a man. They'll figure it out from there. But this wasn't a good game by the Eagles whatsoever. I mean, I just, for the life of me, cannot understand. I mean, this offense, I've never seen so many underneath throws, so many curl routes, so many short yardage throws, so many comeback routes. As a Giants fan, it reminded me of the Jason Garrett era when he was here. It was just so frustrating to watch. And then on top of that, the run game is not that great. Despite having, I understand they've had some players lost due to injury, but they're still one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. So to me, I'm not entirely sure what the next step is for the Philadelphia Eagles outside of firing their OC and possibly moving off of A.J. Brown. But this was a game that just summarized their entire season for me. I left this game saying to myself, yep, that's the Philadelphia Eagles that we've seen all year. Inconsistent. Defense will keep them close into the game. They'll make a play here and there offensively to give them a lead for a little bit or at least possibly win the game. But ultimately, they're only going to go as far as Jalen Hurts can take them, which, again, goes back to the rest of the roster. It needs to be perfect. He needs to have a clean game, and you didn't see a lot of that this year for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Exactly. I said it to Hollywood Ray last week when we did the preview. They just get sloppy wins. But they just weren't like that driving force last year where they were just straight dominating. And we all knew Saquon wasn't going to do what he did last year, this year, just because there's only been 2 running backs out of 10 who have done 2,000 yards in rushing and have kept a consistent over 1,000 yards rushing, and he just barely got it because he was averaging, I think, what was it, like 3 yards or 2.3 yards a carry.
Yeah, it wasn't
something like that. Yeah, it wasn't much, but yeah. So I think Nick Sirianni might be on clean your desk in the off season.
Possible.
It's just he runs his mouth too much, and it's just I feel like not only AJ Brown but other players on this team are probably just like, all right, dude, like I'm kind of tired of your antics. Like, can you just be a coach and not like a rah cheerleader? I guess
maybe, yeah.
But
I mean, maybe it makes sense.
Yeah, maybe AJ Brown goes to this team that we're going to talk about right now because he does have a connection. And that's the Patriots Chargers. Obviously, when we started, they were at halftime, but right now it's 16-3 Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Herbert, 17 for 27, 146 yards. He's gotten sacked 5 times today. My Lord.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they've dealt with a lot of injuries on their offensive line, and this isn't nothing new, right? He, I believe, was the most hit quarterback. It might have been the most sacked quarterback in the NFL going into this game. I know he was the most hit for sure. I think he had 129 hits on him on the year. That's way too much. There was a very strong argument, Aaron, that compared to the rest of the teams in the AFC, whether it was the Texans, whether it was oh my God, I'm blanking on names, whether it was the Bills or the Jags, right? This was a matchup that the Chargers were going to want, right? The Patriots' defensive line is not that great. It somewhat can balance out with the lack of depth that they've had on the offensive line for the Los Angeles Chargers. But ultimately, Aaron, I mean, I'm not shocked by what we're seeing from the Patriots and Chargers game right now. There's only so much that Justin Herbert can do. I mean, I understand that he's been getting it done with Keenan Allen, who's on his last pinky toes, playing in the NFL. I understand that he's been getting it
Crazy.
done, with Hunter Henry, and he's been getting it done with excuse me, not Hunter Henry. Oh my goodness, he's on the Patriots. Getting it
Rondé
done with
Gaston.
Aronde Gaskin and Lad McConkey, but they don't have that. Oh, excuse me, Quentin Johnson, but they don't have that number one guy on offense. Omarion Hampton, I like him a lot as a prospect. I think he's had a pretty good, season, but he's not looking entirely great. Justin Herbert, I mean, it would look. If the score was turned around, right, and the Chargers had 16 and the Patriots had 3, we would be saying to ourselves, look, Drake May, this is his first playoff game. They have Mike Vrabel in his first year as a head coach for the Patriots. The defense isn't that talented, but, they're getting it done. It's okay if Drake May loses this game. He has a ton of a game left in his career to go out there and win more playoff games. Justin Herbert, on the other hand, granted, this is the best coaching staff that he's had in his NFL career. I mean, at some point, man, we need to see the Justin Herbert that many believe you to be. I understand you have a very battered and injured offensive line. I understand that there's not a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. There's talent there, but just not wide receiver one talent. I understand that, again, you're putting a lot of eggs in the basket in your running back and your tight end, considering that they're rookies. But at what point, similar to the Bills, at what point are we going to, leave a playoff game and say, hey, Justin Herbert had a very good game and they won today? We haven't been able to say that for Justin Herbert. And with how good that division is, the Chiefs, they're going to be down until Patrick Mahomes can get right back up. But don't think for a second that they're not going to look at what, really derailed their season this year and address that this offseason and, tell themselves, okay, Patrick, you don't got to rush back in. We can steer the ship for right now. Then you have the Broncos, the Raiders are looking to turn it around. At some point, Aaron and chat, you have to ask yourself, if you're this franchise, at what point is our franchise quarterback going to take us over that hump? I have a lot of questions on Justin Herbert. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, I just pulled up right here. He has 2 playoff losses. He's only been 2 of them, so he's like the Mike Trout of the NFL. 2 touchdowns and 4 picks. He threw 4 picks last year. I think it was who they play against. I think it wasn't Dallas. Who they play? Forgot who they were last year. But yeah, I feel like Justin Herbert's just gonna be a better running quarterback version of Dak Prescott. He's gonna have good regular season wins, either winning the division or wild card, and he's just not gonna get done in the playoffs. That's just my theory. There's only so much that Harbaugh can do, like be the quarterback guru whisperer. And I think what we see from Justin Herbert is what we see. I don't think he has another step in his game. I think he's just this progressive, just steady type of quarterback who's an advanced game manager, because I'm looking at it right now because you're talking about Mike Vrabel. It's his first year with the Patriots. Jet Sweep Josh has Drake May with 268 passing yards right now. Granted, he got sacked 5 times, but he also has a touchdown and a pick. Right now, it's the 2-minute warning for the Patriots, and he's leading the rushers, Drake May, with 69 yards. So it's just insane what Jet Sweep Josh has done with quarterbacks in New England, not anywhere else, not Denver, not Vegas, but with the New England Patriots in this system.
Yeah, listen. It's no shock that Josh McDaniels is getting it done with another Patriots quarterback in New England. No shock there. He's not a good head coach, but there's some people that are just better coordinators than what they are at head coaches, right? Drake May is having himself a very good season. He's in those MVP conversations for a reason. I don't think he's the MVP, but he's in those conversations for a reason. This team for New England, they're a pretty exciting team. right? I mean, they need more talent at wide receiver, but they're getting it done. The running back room, I think, is fairly underrated, whether it's with Ramondre Stevenson or whether it's with Travion Henderson. They're getting it done. And then at the helm, you have obviously Drake May getting it done through the ground, getting it done through the air. I mean, he's looking like a very promising quarterback. Defensively, they have some pieces that I like, but there's not a ton of talent on that defense. But I think you and I could agree, Mike Vrabel being the coach that he is, that'll get buttoned up within the next year, two tops. That'll get buttoned up. I think it's just a matter of, how far can Drake May take us this season? If they win this game and then they lose the next game, you're still feeling very positive about this New England Patriots team because in a second year for a sophomore, a rookie quarterback, he took them deep into the playoffs with a lackluster roster, if we're being honest. And, the head coach, he's not his first time being a head coach, but it's his first time being the head coach for the New England Patriots. So they're a team to be excited about going forward. I'm not entirely not sold on the Chargers. I think they're a very injured team. And they don't have a lot of talent at certain positions that I think they'll be aggressive with addressing, this offseason. I mean, these two teams, whether it's the Chargers or the Patriots, Aaron, I'll be honest with you, and I'll turn it over to you. I think both of these teams are going to be calling up Howie Roseman and the Eagles and saying, what do you want for A.J. Brown? Because these are both teams that clearly need a wide receiver one. Because I think that the Patriots are going to move off of Stephon Diggs after this season. Even though they gave him that 3-year deal, 3-year deal, I just think the headaches that he's caused this offseason, the investigation that he's under right now for choking his chef, I mean, whether people want to talk about it or not, these are things that franchises consider. And we know that Mike Vrabel is a no bullshit guy. He runs a tight ship over there in New England. So I would be very shocked if both of these teams, if not one of these teams, doesn't call up Philadelphia and at least tries to put in an offer for A.J. Brown.
I think if I'm the Chargers, I would give them anything for A.J. Brown just because you have Lad McConkey, and that's kind of it. Exactly. Gaston was a good project. I feel like he can be a good tight end, especially in a Greg Roman system. We've seen it in Baltimore. We've seen it in Buffalo. We've seen it with the Niners at one point when he was over there with Harbaugh the first time. And Quentin Johnston's he is the taller version of Sammy Watkins.
I could kind of see that. That's not a terrible example. I could see that.
He was blowing up a little bit this year, and then he just kind of faded away. And then like you were saying, you have Keenan Allen, but his shoulders are bigger than his stats this year. He was doing great, flash in the pan. He's getting touchdowns. He was your slot guy just because you had Q and Lad McConkey, and just because I think his age is just hitting him in the middle of the year. So I could see them throwing the blank check bag at Philadelphia to get AJ Brown. The Patriots, I'm not sure, just because. Is that relationship between AJ Brown and Mike Vrabel that good? You could say it's good. Good question. But was it really good? I'm not sure. I could definitely be wrong. And I just want to say I'm very glad you're on talking about the Patriots and Hollywood Ray, because Hollywood Ray, if anyone knows him, he would be talking so much right now about that they're going to the AFC champ game. They could take on anybody. Drake May. Is the answer, and that they've been waiting for so long with their their drought,
3-4 years,
waiting forever.
I mean, Aaron, it's funny because now we can officially say, the New England Patriots have won the game. They defeated the Los Angeles Chargers, and it's funny, Aaron. You know how the game ended? The game ended on a sack from Milton Williams, sacking Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is officially 0-3 in the postseason. Looking at the teams that he's lost to, in 2022, he lost to the Jaguars. 2024, he lost to the Texans. And then obviously today he loses to the Patriots.
It was the Texans.
So it's, again, I mean, this wasn't the outcome that the Chargers wanted. But at the same time, I mean, just considering, I mean, it's hard for me to get, entirely on them because not every team is going to be Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. Not every team is going to be, obviously John Harbaugh isn't there anymore, but John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens, who they're teams that just perform at a high level regardless of how many players are injured. They may lead the league in injuries, but you wouldn't be able to tell because they're fighting week in and week out. The Chargers are not that team. They've dealt with a lot of injuries. They have a lot of aging players on bad contracts on that defense too. There's some pieces I like on that defense, but it's not a great defense. They're coached well by Jesse Minter. Don't get me wrong, but not a great defense. But it's just not a good game by the Chargers. And they need to fix it quick because, like I was just saying earlier, that division with the Chiefs, the Broncos, obviously the Raiders are looking to turn it around. You don't have much time.
That and Harbaugh can't go back to the college football ranks, so this is kind of
that's his
last stop. So he needs to hurry it up.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Unless you have anything else, what we do here, obviously, if you watch the show, we do final thoughts.
Mhm.
So I will go first, just so that you can get everything together. So my final thoughts is, I appreciate you coming on the show. I actually apologize. I didn't even say in the beginning of the show, but the content creator for Fake Football Analyst Pod right up there, see it in the corner, that's this guy right here. He made that. And he also made the banner that we have on the Fake Football Analyst Twitter page, which I will bring it up right now because I did it a little bit today. So it's _fake analyst, but he also did the little, the banner thing up there, and he did the logo for Fake Football Analyst Pod. So if anybody needs any stuff, I'm just saying, it's pretty good work. We always appreciate that you did that for us. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, follow in the Fake Football Analyst on YouTube. We do read the comments, so if you want to comment on anything, just let us not let us know, but type it in, and then we'll respond back to it. Make sure also you follow The Giant Topic on all media platforms. He's on another show. I don't want to say it because I'm not sure if he's still on it, a.k.a. the New York Giants Rush. If there's any Giants fans out there. He has pretty good insight on it and good social media, with the clips and all that he does over there too. So he does great work over there. I love the Giants work that he does because he's not very biased like some Giants accounts that I follow. Don't worry, Hollywood Ray will be on for the next episode. He's just doing Hollywood Ray things. And as always, Black people matter.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, Aaron. Thank you.
No problem. Well, this has been another episode of the Fake Football Analysts. I am your host, the most Aaron Cass. We are with Christian Cruz. Don't forget to follow his main Twitter account. He's not on a lot, but when he does, it is at Christian A. Cruz. You can see it right there in his description. Follow that. Follow the Giant Topic. But we will see you when we see you. Peace.
Peace.